the September 27th, 2021 Rotary meeting. Today's pledge will be by Charlie Vale. One Verse of America, past President Dan Olson. The invocation, past President Don Sherman. The welcome song by past President Michelle.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring.
Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who bringeth forth bread from the earth. Amen.
Seated. We have the Secretary's report. Past President Princeton, please.
Thank you, President Cleve. Today we have in attendance 14 Rotarians, and we're delighted to have with us today 3 guests, including our speaker. And in terms of the introductions, could I please ask past President Spencer to introduce the guest at your table?
Yes, so we have Troy, who's visiting us. He recently kind of switched roles. He was in the military and then took on a private position, so he lives in Lexington and works over at Hanscom Air Force Base in logistics.
Welcome, Troy. And past President Murray, would you please do a brief introduction of the guests at your table?
Yes, we have here
Your time's up.
coming from you, Chris Barrett. He's visiting our guest, once a police officer. Welcome, Chris.
Welcome, Chris.
Whenever. Speaker, Mr. Stewart.
Welcome.
Few minutes.
Total of 17 in attendance today.
Thank you, sir. Our welcome song, past President Michelle.
All Rotarians
please stand.
stand.
Yes, please
That's
remain
my
seated.
responsibility, please.
Sorry.
Are you done yet, Murray?
Yes, I am.
We
welcome you to Lexington to meet with us today. Our door is always open to our friends in Rotary. We're glad to have you with us, and we hope you'll come again to Rotary Lexington. We all say welcome, visiting Rotarians. Welcome all you non-Rotarians. Welcome to our club in Lexington. We hope you'll come again.
Okay, now you guys have to sing it back to us.
John Brown's bond.
Test of 20 minutes. Fines and happy dollars. Yes, President Dan.
President Cleve, I have a fine and happy dollars. I fined myself for not making it to the barbecue the night I thought I could, but I couldn't, so I'm sorry, but I'll pay for that. And I have a final happy dollars. We're done. Last Friday, closed out on the last 2 stores, so...
I would like to propose a fine on Murray Arak.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
He did something I consider very un-Rotarian. We both pulled into the parking lot almost at the same time, both of us being late. And I begged him to allow me to go before him because I consider checking into a meeting after him as humiliating. And he refused and dashed into the door before me. And I would like to propose a fine of $500. But I know it won't pass, so I'll make it go.
As a counselor from Murray and having been in hockey and knowing a little bit about checking, I want to differentiate between the fine, whether it's U.S. or Canadian.
I'll give him the benefit of Canadian.
It does, it fits him better, because it's a loony, so it fits him better anyways.
How much did it end up being, past President Klein?
$1.
All right.
That's nothing, come on.
You just broke me.
Anybody else? Past President Dan Olson.
President Cleve, I have $20. I couldn't make the barbecues. It's the first time I've missed them, but my wife had foot surgery last week, and I had to be with her the whole time. So,
Understood.
but
Thank you.
I really thought about you guys, and I hope it went over well. I really miss doing that. It's a lot of fun.
You've always attended all of them. Thank you for all the years for helping us out.
I have a few dollars for not making it, barbecue.
Last time we had a meeting, I had some nice news with Davina having a baby and whatnot. Unfortunately, last Friday, they lost an 18-month dog. He had cancer and he died too young. So that was the sad part, so I'm giving money for that. I'm also going to give money for the Rotarians that attended the barbecue, and thanks to Megan as well for that, so I'm giving $20 for both of those.
Thank you.
You'll have to build it. Wow.
Dan, you write that down?
Dominic, Past President Dominic, I saw the posting that your wife put on Facebook regarding the loss of
Yeah, it
your
was,
family back.
cancer got the best of those.
My condolences, being a dog person.
20.
Past President Spencer.
I'll go quickly and then Megan can take the floor. 11 happy dollars for those who don't believe it. My son is turning 11 this weekend, who was not even alive the first time I was president, which is kind of scary to think about. And then we're back to the weekend routine. So this weekend we had 5 softball games, flag football, lacrosse, and a couple other trainings. So if you need me on the weekends, the answer is no.
We know where to find you though, right?
Yeah, I'm on a sports field somewhere.
I have 10 happy dollars also. I missed the barbecue. I apologize. I've never done that before. But I hope it was great.
Vice President Megan.
I have 14 happy dollars, because that was left over from the 6th from earlier. Thank you everybody who came to the barbecues, they were a lot of fun. Every day, it looked like it was gonna rain the whole time, and then it just didn't. It was nice, and the people there were super appreciative as always, and everybody did a great job, and thanks so much.
Thank you for what you
It
did.
was a lot of
Thank you.
Megan, I just realized I didn't respond to you. If you don't have space, give them back to me, because they can go back in the kitchen.
Oh yeah, I have the aprons and the coolers, and they're at my house, so should I just leave them there?
If you have space, if not, I don't mind keeping the stuff at the back.
Or
So you just let me
notice
know.
everybody, I have the aprons and the coolers. I'll forget, they're in the attic.
Anybody else?
Am I billing you?
Yes, you are.
500.
Go ahead.
I'll close out the happy dollars. To 2 of my good friends that are here, one's guest speaker, one's a guest of mine, Paul Stewart, former NHL referee. He's going to get a formal announcement in a little while, so I'm going to be brief about it. But Paul helped me out with my skating, as far as making the jump from youth hockey to high school and into college. He helped me a lot, mentored me, spent a lot of his own time on hockey rinks, late at night, early in the morning, just me and him, just out there working on techniques. But one of the things he'll probably talk about, may not talk about, but a big milestone for an NHL referee is working 1,000 games, which Paul Stewart did. And I was honored to be a guest of his at the Boston Garden at the time on March 15, 2003. And for that game and also the ceremony after in Legends, the club Legends there. And I have a ceremonial puck from that time there, from that day there, Paul. And also it's signed by Paul. Thank you very much, Paul, for what you've done. My second guest, Chris Barry, from the Lexington Police Department, fellow officer for 23 years. I recently got promoted to detective lieutenant, meaning he's in charge of the detective bureau and all investigations that happen with the police department. He also serves on the Human Rights Committee with me, one of the jobs that he kind of, the detective lieutenant always is in that position there, so we work together on that position also. Paul took away some of my introduction talking about him. Paul was also, Chris knows now, he's a former police officer down at Cape Cod, and he still remains as a deputy sheriff down at Cape Cod. And Chris is a big hockey fan, played hockey at a high level, coached at a high level. Even now, he gives back and he's coaching his youth hockey teams with his sons. And he's a big fan of Paul. So for you, Chris, one ceremonial puck from his 1000th game. It's not signed, but he's right there. You can sign it. Okay, anybody else? Okay, moving on to announcements. As Megan had said, the senior barbecue was very, very successful. I want to thank Megan for that. And just a couple interesting things happened during the barbecue that I want to mention. I thought I was had my glory as far as standing up in front of the grill. The grill was all warmed up. I had the ready to flip a spatula, and out of the corner of my eye, peripheral vision, I saw these eyeballs looking at me. Megan came over, took the spatula, and said, "I got this." So the vice president took the duties away from the president as far as that, something that Megan always does. So Veronica, when you're here next year, you're going to be in good hands. You have somebody to watch your back.
I get a little bossy about it.
But the other thing, just as important or more important, even with Megan's running this, which she's done for so many years, running around, picking up the food, making connections, putting out fires, one of the things that really touched me was she found the time to give Bob Sacco a ride to the second barbecue. When she was there, she picked him up and brought him to the second barbecue. Thank you so much for that. And also, Jim Freeling, unfortunately, is not here, but he, every year, past President Jim Freeling provides the food to Brookhaven, as he did steady every year, so I want to thank him for that, something he always does every year. Moving on with announcements. Sergeant at Arms, Alan, would you care to speak about Discovery Day?
Yes, Discovery Day, Rediscovery Day. We have a booth at Discovery Day, which is October 9th, which is less than 2 weeks away. And we need people to man the booth, or woman the booth, depending on who you are. I will be there, because I have my booth sort of next to it, but that's what I really have to concentrate on. I can set the booth up. I just need somebody or people. It goes from 10 to 3. I need people to be there to greet prospective members and people that are happy to see you. I know Michelle works there, so she's got nothing to do with it. You just come outside.
That's what I said. No, I really will, because I'll have 2 other
They
people
need
there,
you.
so I can do whatever I want. So I'll come outside during work hours. But after that, I have to go to soccer.
But
Yeah.
if anybody would like to help, just let me know. So 10 to 3, 1 person's fine, 2 people's great. We have all the, Dominic gave me all the stuff that we've been giving out at everything for the last 10 years. And so we have plenty of little trinkets to give out.
People just want the free stuff. They don't want to talk to us anyways.
It's gotta be 1 or 2.
It's true.
Alan, thank you. Past President Michelle, do you care to speak a little about the cash raffle?
Sure, so I have, the tickets are in. For those of you that haven't, I know a lot of you have reached out to me and I've handed out tickets. For those of you that haven't, please reach out to me. Even if it's just a couple you take, anything helps. It's difficult, last minute, trying to get rid of them, as we all know. So I'm gonna try to send some letters out to the police department, the fire department, just letting them know that we're doing it. If anyone's interested, they can contact Mr. Booza, but if we can try to get more sold within the group, that would be great. I think I only have about 80 still in hand. The rest of them are out being sold. So if anybody hasn't reached out to me, please do so as soon as possible. Thank you.
Dan, do you have your email that you have, like you put together? You've done that in the past, where you kind of explain what the money goes for, the image and all that?
The letter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can put one together.
Dan, we need the thing from Karen though. She didn't send, did she send it to you? The new ticket for this year is different,
The
so
image?
the
Yeah.
image, so
No.
we'll have to ask Karen to send it to us from Wales, because she didn't send it this year.
Okay, you want to do that?
Yeah, I'll email her and I'll CC you and have her send it.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, we're also doing the bucket raffle, so if anybody has anything or knows anybody that can donate anything for the bucket raffle, that would be great too. We're gonna be doing it the old fashioned way in the bucket, because Michelle likes to change things up. So we're not gonna be doing it on the computer this year. We're gonna actually be pulling the numbers. Danny was nice enough to order all the stuff for it.
Oh, cool.
Old school.
We're going old school.
Nice.
I like to change things up.
Do we get the bar at the VFW?
KSE.
Nice
Casey's.
We're doing it at the KSE, so, and it's just us, they're close to members that day.
Well, that'll be
So
fun.
it'll just be Rotary members.
The date?
Huh?
The 19th, is it October 19th?
No,
November 19th.
November 19th.
Oh, okay, perfect,
November
It's the
19th.
Friday before Thanksgiving.
okay, great,
Thank you, Past President Michelle.
thank you.
And one important thing, as far as our scheduling, it's going to be on the it's on the computer, it's on the schedule, but our next meeting is actually October 4th,
Which is next.
next Monday. Okay, just as a note for that there.
It's November 19th.
November 19th.
The weekly raffle. Items were given by Alex Oil, Spencer Beck, Past President Spencer Beck, Pickering Financial, and the Rotary Club of Lexington.
Blue tickets.
We have some fabulous prizes.
Let's see. First ticket. Last three numbers. 119. That's Murray. Congratulations, Murray.
See his page coming in late.
Next ticket. 122.
That's me.
You look at this.
Behind Murray again.
We're competing today.
No, I don't need anything else at my house, I try to get rid of it.
Next ticket. 114.
Those are nice from Arlex, Jack just dropped those off from Arlex.
You got it?
Here you go. Take anything you want.
Go pick a prize, pick a prize.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Your lucky day.
They're right over here.
Not many people are
I
this
could
nice
have
to
brought
referees.
this over to you. Well, you can just hang out here. You're gonna talk.
Okay, I'll take this computer,
The prizes are over here, sir.
this one, right here.
Yes, nice try though.
You can have it.
069.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Beacon Financial.
Enjoy that too.
Thank you, Sergeant Reynolds.
All right. I better be good with that pack.
A speaker introduction, Past President Murray.
Thank you, President Cleve.
Thank you.
Today, very fortunate and honored to have with us Paul Stewart. Paul is a former NHL player and referee, and he is in the NHL Hockey of Fame, although more of which he can tell you. And Paul also is an author, so I've been talking with him. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'd like to now bring Paul Stewart. And I want to also thank Cleve for connecting me to Paul. Thank you very much, President Cleve. That was really great. You've been such a help this year in getting some fantastic speakers. Paul?
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm good. Usually when this many people stand as I arrive, it means they're leaving. What's interesting is that over the course of my career and my lifetime, I've had the opportunity to be affiliated with a lot of different groups such as yours. This is very intimate and a lot of fun, and you folks are doing well. I did just recently move, and a lot of my possessions are in boxes still to be sorted, but I remember that I did receive the Paul Harris Award from the Rotary, and it had a beautiful medal and a ribbon of your colors and a nice plaque. So when Cleve asked me to be here, I immediately said yes. First of all, because he's a friend of mine, and second of all, because of the fact that all of the times that I've had the opportunity to speak to Rotarians, it's always been fun, because in my lifetime I've learned that I don't sell things, I make friends. That's the secret to my business and my success over the course of time. And it seems incongruous that a referee would actually say that he made friends out there. A lot of people, perhaps, if you look online and see pictures of me, you'll see not too many that I'm not smiling. And people say to me all the time, why are you always so happy? Well, I'm in a rink, and that's where my friends are. And I always enjoyed being with people. And friction is part of hockey, even for nights when Pat Burns or any of the other coaches might have Mike Keenan or Scotty Bowman. We might have words going back and forth, but it was always business and it was never personal. And I talk about this because of the fact that we were just talking about this young fellow over here in the liquor business for 50 years and his father and his uncle before him.
He's very young.
It's interesting because he wears gray well, so do I. But what's interesting is that my grandfather was the first American to referee in the NHL. And at the same time, he had a career in Major League Baseball. He started as a pitcher, and he pitched all the way through the minors and got to Chicago White Sox training camp in 1919 and hurt his shoulder. But I have pictures of him with shoeless Joe Jackson. And he hurt his shoulder, as most athletes in that time and even now today, you look at a fellow like myself, I've always had another job off season. And it's because we didn't make the money that they're doing now. These guys that are playing now and even the women that are playing, I mean, look at the purses in golf and look at what the minor league salaries for players playing in Worcester. It's unbelievable what they're making. But money wasn't the object for me. I sat at the kitchen table or at Thanksgiving and listened to my grandfather talk about how he, after pitching, went into umpiring. And he did 22 years in the National League. And he did the first night game, and he did the Bobby Thompson shot heard around the world, the Giants and the Dodgers. He did the 48 World Series with Bob Feller at Braves Field. And in the meantime, in the winter, he would come home and he would referee hockey and coach. So he refereed hockey in the NHL, and then the owner of Chicago wanted to put a team of all Americans in the National Hockey League back in the mid-30s, which was unheard of. And my grandfather assembled 9 out of 15, and they won the Stanley Cup. So when you're sitting at that table and you're sitting and listening to stories about how my grandfather, rubbed elbows with Stan Musial and Babe Ruth and others, Joe DiMaggio, and then he's talking about refereeing with Milt Schmidt and the Bruins in their golden era of hockey. And then my father went into the same trade. He was a 3-sport coach at Boston English High. He missed 10 days in 37 years. And he used to referee and umpire all the Division I colleges. He did the World Series in Omaha. He did Harvard-Yale, Army, Navy, football, and in baseball, and in hockey, he did the NCAAs 6 times. And for those that remember the Beanpot, my dad did 19 final games at the Beanpot. And what else could I have done? But my dad always made sure that we had a good education. I have 2 brothers. One was former head of probation and parole here in Massachusetts. My other brother was a federal agent, retired after 35 years, and now he's heading up cold cases in Chicago. And my sister was a nurse at St. E's. She was 9 years in the Air Force at the Air Force Academy. So dedication and service has been something that we all got into. But why did I go into sports? Because I just would watch BU play BC. Or I'd be the baseball bat boy for Boston College or Dartmouth. And then in football, Gogolak's kicking field goals at Cornell, and I'm the ball boy chasing them all over the stadium. And that was my life. And that's what I liked. And that's what I dedicated myself to. But my dad made sure we got a good education. I went to Groton School. And for those that don't know anything about Groton School, Groton is in Groton, Mass. And it was founded by Endicott Peabody in 1890. And people that went there, such as Dean Acheson and Cyrus Vance and Franklin Roosevelt and others, people say, oh yeah, right off the Mayflower. Well, my family was untying the rope so the Mayflower could leave. We were probably the longshoremen back at that time. But it's interesting, I grew up in Dorchester. I was born in Dorchester, weren't we all, at St. Margaret's up on the hill. And I went to St. Greg's. You always identify the part of Dorchester you're from the parish that you lived in. And on one side of the street was all Catholic kids, and on the other side of the street was all Jewish kids. And on Friday night, the lights would start to come on in the street. All the Jewish kids had to put on their yarmulkes and their prayer shawl, and they'd have to beat it up to Temple Beth Hillel up on Morton. And the games were over. And on Fridays, we Catholics had to eat fish, but I used to go over to Spencer Foreman's house, take my baseball hat and spin it around and sit there and eat the chicken soup. And then I'd go home and watch my mother mangle fillet of sole or whatever else, and I'd say, no, I'm okay. She'd say, you're eating meat. On Saturday, all the Jewish kids would come back, and when the games would start up, and my dad would come out and say, come on, we got breakfast. And there'd be pancakes there, and milk, and eggs, and bacon, and sausage, and ham. And those kids, friends of mine, Arnie Friedman and Spencer Foreman, they'd be stabbing that ham, and I'd be looking at them like, can't eat that. We're going to hell together. But growing up in Dorchester, there weren't too many kids in 1958 at 5 years old were saying, I'm going to play in the NHL. And if you have a chance and go online in the Amazon, you can see my children's book. It's called The Magical Christmas for Paul Stewart. It's a little bit about Ralphie, you know, with the Red Ryder rifle. And I got a pair of skates, and those skates took me everywhere. And they helped me achieve the dream I had, which was to play in the National Hockey League. And the first night I played in the National Hockey League was against, of all people, the Boston Bruins. And I had, a lot of people don't know this, but in my career as a player, I had 2 goals. I scored one against Vancouver and one against New York Islanders. And yet my first game in Boston, I had a hat trick. I fought O'Reilly, Jonathan, and Secord right in a row. And a lot of people would say, well, that's dastardly. Why did you do that? There weren't too many American kids in the National Hockey League. And they didn't want us. And the Canadians didn't like us. And then top it off with, I'm a prep school kid, you know, from Groton, cut it out. And then I went to Penn. Nobody played in the NHL. Not too many guys. There were only 11 Americans in the National League in '75 when I broke in. And you know what? My first night, I went out for dinner with Rod Gilbert. I went out with Nicky Fatiu, and we went to a place called Il Vagabondo in New York. And I said, this is what I want to do. And I was willing to pay the price. And my part of it was I had to fight. But it was no different than when I left St. Gregory's at 2 o'clock or 2:30 going on the way home. If I went Morton Street, they'd steal my lunch money. If I went on River Street, they'd steal my sneakers. So I had to learn how to fight, and I did fight. And it was part of the game. And a lot of people say, you know, could you play? I lasted 28 years in pro hockey. I could skate, and as you can see, I'm a big guy and strong, and I had no fear. And that's interesting because I wanted to talk today a little bit about, I've never been on Patriots Day here. And I always wondered if I would have had the guts, like those farmers, to stand out on that green and face those people. Yesterday I was watching Military Channel and Halsey 360, and he was at the Battle of the Coral Sea when the Lexington, the carrier went down. I always wondered if I would have had the guts to get on that ship. I always wondered if I would have had the guts to get in a B-17 and fly over Germany and get shot at. And then I think about it. I think I would have. You know why? Because I had the guts to go out to play in Quebec, and I played in Edmonton. And I was American. And I went through Canadian customs, and they would say, Tardif, Le Duc, Le Croix, Le Fleur, Stewart. I thought all the players on the Nordiques were French. I said, not the tough ones. And a lot of people don't know this, but when I broke into the NHL, most of the tough guys were American. The Rangers had Fatiu, they had Nyland in Montreal, they had Langley in Montreal, they had Paul Holmgren in Philadelphia. I could get down the list. The Carlsons, Slapshot fame. Well, I was in the movie. Hey, Hanrahan, your wife's a dyke. Freeze it. I'm right there, right behind Paul Newman. I got to skate with Paul Newman. I got to have dinner with him, have a couple beers with him, and it was a lot of fun. And what's interesting about that is my freshman year at Penn, I went to University of Pennsylvania. I played freshman hockey. We all had to play freshman back in those days. And sophomore year, I was MVP in 5 games out of the 40 we played. MVP, best player on the ice. My junior year, we brought in 18 Canadians. I never played a game, never took a shift, practiced every day, sat on the sideboards, never took a shift. And people say, how'd you make the NHL? I never quit. Plus, my job at Penn was I was the assistant rink manager. I drove the Zamboni, I painted the walls, I slopped the toilets, you name it. But I had a key to the rink. And when everybody else was out drinking, I was down there skating, working. Because my father said to me, they made a decision about you, now you make a decision about their decision. My senior year, I played in 3 games. I was leading the team in scoring. The coach, we were going to Princeton, and the coach brought me in and took his glasses off and said, I'm just going to tell you, you're not going to play the rest of the year. I turned and I said to him, that's whose decision? Yours? He goes, I made this decision. It turned out that the players, the Canadians, they didn't want me. One guy hacked me, he put me in the hospital for 2 weeks. I had a crack in my C3. I came out of the hospital. I said to him at practice, what'd you do that for? Screw you, I'm not here to be friends with you. Wrong answer. I hit him in a scrimmage so hard that he never played again. And another guy came, he separated both shoulders and I broke his sternum with a body check, clean. And then a friend of his came after to take me on, and I used to box with Joe Frazier and those guys, and one punch, boom, down, he's out. So I bought a $14 bus ticket and went to Binghamton. And you'd say, where's Binghamton? It's somewhere left of the sphincter, and not a lot of people realize it, because it's not exactly hockey heaven. But it was the worst team in the worst league. And I figured if I start here, I'll make it. And I worked my way up. And that's what I did. So that's why I think if those British were coming up the road, I think I would stand up there. Because I grew up in a house, and a lot of people don't realize when you look at that referee sweater over there, it's symbolic, it's black and white, it's yes and no, it's right and wrong. It's fair or foul. You're either telling the truth or you're telling a lie. And when you put that sweater on, that's the ultimate in integrity. You've got to go out there and be fair. That's why I liked, when I was a police officer, I liked being a cop, because I could use my judgment and I could use my feel for people and I could communicate. And like I said, I lasted a long time. And, you know, I went into officiating, which is kind of like being a cop. So, long story short, I had a career as a player, and then I stepped out. For 3 years I was troubled, and cost of marriage, and I was fortunate I didn't do the drugs and the drinking and didn't fall down into that type of depression, but it happens. You read about it a lot, about guys that just can't find their way. But my mother said to me one day, here's your father's resume, and she wrote at the back, a busy man is a happy man, get busy. And if you're doing something, it'll take your mind off your troubles. And I found, as I've said before, that I was good when I was in the rink. So somebody said to me, why don't you go back and start reffing? And I did. And eventually the NHL found me, or I found them, and pushed my way in. My first year working for them, I worked 6 different leagues. I used to leave and go on the road and then be gone for 35 days and work 34 games in 35 nights in places like Salt Lake City and Seattle and Portland and up and all the way to Moose Jaw. And how people will always say, where's Moose Jaw? It's 6 feet from the moose's ass, don't you know? I went to places that they're rumors, you don't even know that they're there. And then I would get to Eastern Canada and go all the way back. And work 37 games and 39 nights. And I use the word work because it's something that you can understand. It was never work for me. I used to go out that runway, and that's why I was never afraid, because that was where I was supposed to be. And I have this faith about being a person who has a mission. I've been lucky, and I don't believe in luck. If you watch the movie 12 O'Clock High with Gregory Peck, he says, I don't believe in luck. I believe in the basics, flying and formation and good gunnery and all those things when he was in command of an 8th Air Force base in Britain. And I don't believe in luck either. I believe in persistence. and I believe in repetitive work, and I believe in getting up early. And if you're supposed to be there at 11, if you're there at 10:45, you're late. And I do what I do. Now people say to me, what are you doing now? Well, I sell roofing. And people say, that's a long way from the NHL. Well, Harry Sinden, he's from Winchester now, said, you know, the way you refereed, you took the roof off this building, you should put one back on before you leave. So, to me, it's a part of the game. It's a game. And I go out and I win. Or I lose. But I'm the top salesman in the USA for this company, the biggest company in the US. I only want to be with the best. And that's why I went to Groton School, and I went to Penn, and I went to the NHL, not only as a player, but as a referee. So I made it twice. No, I made it 3 times. In '98, the National Hockey League, which most people go NHL, National Hockey League, what it really means is no home life. I was home for 2 weeks during the Olympics. My wife and I were sitting there, and she was pregnant with our first child, and she gave me a little whack and said to me, you should watch this. And it was Katie Couric talking about how she had just lost her husband from colon cancer. She said, you have all those symptoms. You should go get checked. I said, yeah, I'll call the doctor on Monday. She said, no, you'll call the doctor right now. And I got up. I called the doctor, and I went in and had the tests, and I had stage 4 colon cancer. And I got that news the day after my son was born. And I said to the doctors, this is a bad joke. And one said to me, you should probably go home and get your papers in order. So I said, well, I'll be back. So I went in my car, and I drove over to St. Joseph Cemetery, and I bought the plot. My father's buried here, and my grandfather's buried there, and I bought the next plot over. And people say, oh, isn't that something? It's nice. It's ecologically sound. And I'll tell you what, you see the gas prices now? If you don't like refereeing and you want to pee on 3 graves, you get them all at once, right there. I went there, I went to Al Thomas's, I got my funeral thing done. I didn't want to have a big deal, because my wife was young and the baby was new and it would be emotional. And I took care of my finances. Then I went back to the doctor's office and I said, where do you live? He goes, I live in Duxbury. I said, yeah. I said, when we used to cross the bridge in the Lower Mills, and going from Dorchester to, I mean, it was actually Dorchester AM, and people said, AM, what's that? I said, almost Milton. We were right on the river, and we would see the water there, and we thought we were at the Cape. So basically, the whole aspect of him being from Duxbury and I was from Dorchester, it's a different mindset. I said, you know, I may not make it, but I think maybe we should give it a try. Because if I'm going down, I'm going to give it a fight. So I had surgery, and it was long in process, and got the last rites, and then I was on chemo. And I told those guys, and it was all the Celtics doctors at the Baptist, that if I'm gonna make it back, I gotta start working out. The chemo's tough. I was on chemo 24/7 for 8 months. And I had a port in my chest, and I actually started refereeing, and I ran into Bork, and I went like that. And that's when I said to the doctors, I don't know if I can do the reffing with the port in, because I carried a bag of chemo with me. So they put me on pills. I was the first guy to be on this stuff called Zalota. And here I am. So I wouldn't give up. So I made the NHL 3 times. As a player, as a referee, and as a cancer survivor. And I think part of the mission, why sometimes I think that the good Lord kept me around, is because I could help people. Stand up here and just say to people, have you had your colonoscopy? Have you said this to other people in your family or your friends? And not just that message, but also be aware of yourself. You know, there are a lot of signs in hockey. This is hooking, and this is slash, and this is tripping. But there are signs for being ill. And pay attention. And, you know, because it's tough enough being here, but it's going to be tougher without you. And so, you know, we don't want to lose teammates before their time. I thought I'd, give you an opportunity to ask me a few questions. I did bring in some books. I have books there. People ask me all the time, why did you write a book? Well, I was in Russia. It's funny how my life, here I am from Dorchester. I ended up at Groton School. My roommate's a congressman. He's a Rhodes Scholar, smart kid, James Cooper from Tennessee. I helped him with his homework every night. Then Nicholas Freeland is the Dalai Lama's assistant. And he was a photographer. He went to film school in New York, and then he found his religion, and he's been a monk for all these years since. And I went to school with lots of different people and met all these different celebrities, Paul Newman and so on and so forth. But I thought I'd give you a chance to ask me some questions. But what it comes down to for me is that, like that movie, The Field of Dreams, I lived my dream. And I have the opportunity now to stand in front of a great group of people here and say, you know, along the way, we need to encourage people to go after their dreams. And even now, for those of us that are a little more mature, we still have dreams. Maybe it's we want to have a hole-in-one, or catch a good fish, or maybe watch our grandson score a touchdown, or score a basket, or get an A in class, or something. You know, there's a reason that we want to stay in the game, and never give up. Kid from Dorchester, phone rings. It's Tretiak, who was the goaltender for the Russians against Canada, and Fetisov, and they call me from the Kremlin. What's up? Would you come over to have a meeting with us? I said, sure, why not? So I get on a plane in 2012, and I flew over to Russia. And there's Putin sitting there, and Medvedev sitting there, and Lukashenko sitting there, and all these people, and they're all with the KHL. What can I do for you? Well, these fellows over here, Fetisov and Larionov and Tretiak, they think that you're a tough guy. I said, okay. I came all the way to find that out. I said, yeah, I've had my moments. And they say that you're pretty honest. I said, not pretty, I'm honest. And you're not afraid of anybody. I said, not afraid of anybody. Why should I be? They should be afraid of me, because truth hurts. We'd like you to clean up our league. Will you come over here? So I spent 3 years in Moscow, and actually spent 3 years all over Russia. And I went in and I cleaned it up, and got it so that the referees weren't getting paid off, and I got it so that the referees weren't, not only not getting bribed, but they didn't have people didn't get the perception that everything was on a fix. And trust me, I went nose to nose with a lot of guys over there. And I didn't speak Russian at first, but now I speak enough where I understood when they went after me, But as I said, I'm not Tiny Tim. And I used to take the train, the metro, beautiful train stations, and I really enjoyed the life. And I found out something about those Russian people. They have as much pride as we do. It's just that we have a great problem with them. And I said this to Senator Kerry. He came over one day to Russia. They have more letters in their alphabet, in the Cyrillic alphabet, and their inflections sometimes mean one thing and they sound like another. And it's just a problem with communication with them. And everybody talks about, Putin, he's a criminal, or he's this, or he's that. You know what? He barked at me one night. I was sitting on the other side of the rink, and there was a game. It was right after the Olympics in Sochi. And I was summoned. So I walked around the other side of the rink. And I went to this suite, and they had a big suite, and they had a big table full of food and drinks and all this. And he said, we pay you a lot of money. These officials are terrible. I said, yeah, what's your point? You should have fixed this. I said, well, I gave your assistant a report. I said, I've been here since June. And they start hockey back in Russia in like July. I said, I've went around this whole country. The only city I haven't been to is Vladivostok, which is way up in the eastern part of Russia, right on the ocean. Every official is in that report. These four, two of them are paying at least $2,000, $3,000 to somebody to keep their jobs. And the other two are too old. They can't skate. And these are the two best teams in the KHL, and that's why you're here. I said, so I did my job, but you're sitting in Sochi eating a hot dog and drinking a beer and pissed off because our president didn't come over and pay you homage. I said, he's a basketball guy. What do you expect? He's not coming over there. He's sitting, you know, it's all politics and religion for him. He's got to act like he's a tough guy. So he's not coming. I said, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have done your job. So he said to his assistant, give me that. And he looks at the report. I had it in Russian and English. Okay, thank you. That was it. I'm walking out. He said, I have one more question. I said, what's that? He said, are you afraid of me? I said, why should I be afraid of you? I'm from Dorchester. Look it up. I went into the KHL. I take the bullet train back from St. Petersburg, back to Moscow the next day. It's like an Amtrak, and fast. And I get into the office, and Alexander Medvedev, who's also the chairman of Gazprom, which is the biggest energy company in the world, he summoned me into his office. And I said, what's up? He said to me, I heard you ran into the boss last night. I said, yeah. He said, he asked me to ask you, is this your contract? I looked at it and I said, yep. He went. I said, oh, okay, that mean I'm heading home? He said, nope, here's your new contract. And they doubled my pay. And I don't know, is anybody here from the IRS? Cash. Every 2 weeks in a brown paper bag, U.S. greenbacks. And they gave it to me, and I would put it, and I was living there, and my wife was down home, and I put it into the Gazprom bank, and she had a telex card, and she could take it out and pay the mortgage and take care of the kids' tuitions and all that. But it was an interesting thing. And then people say, why didn't you stay? I missed 3 years of my sons growing up, and I was in my apartment one day. I had a beautiful place, and the phone rang, and I got up to walk around the bed to go get it. It was in the washroom, and I fell down, and I couldn't get up. And I crawled to the phone, and it turned out it was a friend of mine who was actually outside. And I said, you better get in here, I'm having problems. And they took me to the hospital, and they did an MRI, and it turned out I had a brain tumor. So, and I had been getting these headaches and the spasms like in my neck, and I was starting to have vision issues. And so, this is what Putin did. They sent me to his neurosurgeon, and said to me, you know, you have a tumor on your pituitary gland, and it's pressing on your optic nerve, and that's what's causing your imbalances. And so I said, well, I gotta go home. So that guy flew home with me. They made sure I got home. And then I just said, after 3 years, I've done all I can do. Not bad for a kid from Dorchester. Yeah. Okay, so, questions? Yes, sir.
Paul, you said that the Canadians are really hard on American hockey players. How is it being an American and refereeing in Canada when the game's up there? Did you find the treatment much different than?
I had a different relationship with, like I did the '87 Canada Cup Game 2 double overtime, 6-5, and a lot of people. The one linesman was from Sweden, and the other linesman was John D'Amico, who's a Hall of Fame guy, and I got picked because they wanted a neutral country person. You know, to me, anytime a person who is a referee walks into a ring and takes his clothes off and puts on a uniform, he is neutral. And the minute he puts on that sweater, it's yes and no for him. But I played with Messier. I bought him his first beer. I played against Gretzky. His first game, I asked him, do you have a note to be out this late? I played against Bork. So they knew me. And they knew what type of guy I was. And I never gooned anybody. I would fight fighters. I had 1,500 minutes in penalties. My first year pro, I had 44 majors in 46 games. But I had to, because they came at me. I had to fight. So I had that acceptability factor with the players. And they were also curious to see what kind of referee I was going to be. And I could skate. And don't forget, I came from a family with 2 generations of officials. My grandfather refereed 715 games in the National Hockey League. Refereed the only game ever forfeited. He refereed the longest game ever played in the NHL. And he refereed out of, I think, 13 years, he had 9 finals. And then all those World Series and all that, and my dad. So it was about positioning and skating and communication and feel. And I had great teachers. So when I went on the ice, just like anybody in the businesses that you're in, you show up and you're a pro. And you give them professional respect. And I, as a referee, can't demand respect. I had to earn it. But when I had my arm in the air and called a penalty or I disallowed a goal and Gretzky would turn and look and I was 4 feet from him, what's he going to say? If you look in my book, the picture of the Canada Cup and the winning goal, I'm directly behind the net. I beat the players to the net and I was well behind them, but I could skate. But I had the feel. So after a while, you know, you're never going to please everybody. Lincoln said that, right? Didn't Lincoln say that? You know, you please some of the people some of the time, most of the people most of the time, but not all of the people all of the time. You never, my dad and my grandfather and my brother, they taught me, and I had a whole host of Hall of Fame teachers that were former NHL guys. And they saw the value of what I brought to the table. So I never worked a Stanley Cup final. Because the guy that hired me, John McCauley, whose son Wes is now a referee, he died in '89. And Scotty Morrison, who was the referee-in-chief, he retired, became the president of the Hockey Hall of Fame. And the guy that took over was a guy that, 2 guys that took over, they hated me. They hated me. I was in Washington 2 days before the All-Star game, and I get a phone call from him, this director, and he said to me, where are you going for the All-Star break? I said, well, I was going to go to Tampa because I got a game in Tampa when the All-Star break's over. And the All-Star break is usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the games start up again on Tuesday. So I was going to go down to Tampa for 5 days. And I had plenty of points with Marriott, and 250 nights a year in Marriott's. I'm Platinum Plus or whatever I am. You know what he did? Changed my schedule, sent me to Vancouver. That's the furthest point away from Tampa, I can promise you. And he did it because he was a bastard. You know what? They couldn't beat me. I went to Groton School in the University of Pennsylvania, and I came from a family that had bloodlines and earned it. So when Gretzky, I go in the Hall of Fame and the phone rings, it's Gretzky calling me to congratulate me. And when I had my hip replaced in October, one of the guys I used to play against had a catering business in Rhode Island. And every day he would show up and bring meals to me. My wife and I, and my wife can sort of boil water, but not too good at it. Anyway, I said to him, can I do something for you? I mean, you've done all this for me, and, you know, Italian wedding soup, and, you know, good guy. What can I do for you? He said, I always wanted a Gretzky sweater. So I called Gretzky. If you take my phone over there, you could call him right now. And it was just at the time when his dad died. Well, when they came to Russia, I ferried his father everywhere. And I used to go to his golf tournaments up in Canada for the blind children. And so, you know, it's give and take. It's about respect. And I started to say this before, and I got off base. Referees can't demand respect. They have to earn it every night. But the fact is that when Gretzky said, where do I send the sweater? I said, well, send it here. I got 2. That's respect. And when I walked in the room, I scored 2 goals in the National Hockey League, and Gordie Howe gets up and walks over and shakes my hand. That's what I was after. I was after that recognition and that respect. And it's no different than any of the businesses or any of the things that we have. You know, you have your neighbor next door and there's a fence between you, but, you know, they have a lot of snow on their driveway, and you go over and you help them. You earn it. And I did that. Now, I didn't get along with a lot of different guys, like Eisenman. I said to Eisenman, he was captain of Detroit. I'm standing in front of the bench one night, and he and I went back and forth. I didn't like, it didn't matter the way he treated me, I didn't really care. But I didn't like the way he treated the linesmen. And the linesmen, they're barely hanging on to their jobs. Because the old expression, you can find a linesman on any corner. So I had friends that were linesmen. And Eisenman used to piss on their cornflakes, and I didn't like it. So I dumped him in Detroit. And I told Illich, who owned the Detroit, he owned Little Caesar's Pizza, I said, I'm the best goddamn thing that ever happened to your business. He goes, what do you mean? You just threw my captain out. I said, I'm not talking about hockey, I'm talking about the pizza business. Did you see 30, 40 pizzas got thrown out on the ice tonight? So, I hope that answers your question.
Very well.
But you know what? I have the same respect back for and to me, there are 40 players in uniform. And my first week, I threw out Eisenman in New York, Madison Square Garden. I threw out Gretzky in Hartford, and I threw out Lemieux in Pittsburgh. And I get home and the light's blinking on my phone, and it's the president of the league. Are we having a problem getting along with superstars? I said, not at all. The first guy questioned my sexual preference. Second guy bumped me. Lemieux, 6'6", he bumped me. You can't touch a referee. And the third guy, Gretzky, handed me a stick. So I gave him I had a Sharpie with me. I said, here, you can take that, go in the dressing room. He says, you want me to autograph it? I said, well, you're going to have about 20 minutes to do it. You're out. See you later. And guess what? I never had another problem with teams. Because there's an expression in hockey, telegram, television, telegraph, and teleref. And if you do something in New York, 20 minutes later, the people in LA know what the hell's going on. And that's how it is. It's like the women washing the clothes at the back fence. They chatter back and forth. Any other questions? No? Get your money's worth. Anyway, thank you. I hope you got what you wanted, and I enjoyed my time here.
Paul, thank you so much. As you can see, Paul's on crutches. He unexpectedly broke a bone.
I broke my femur 2 months ago. And the guy said to me, I kept complaining, because I had my hips replaced. And you know what he said to me? We'll do a bone scan. And with my history of cancer, they weren't afraid I had cancer, because I just had a pancreatic biopsy. And it turned out, he says, you got like a 6-inch crack in your femur, which is a big bone. And every time I stepped on it, it was killing me, and I couldn't play golf, which is really so. He said, how have you been walking on this stuff? I said, I don't know. I'm from Dorchester.
But Paul's done a lot for me with my refereeing career. Like I said, spending time on the ice, helping me out, learning the game. Even at the Boston Garden, one night he selected me to be at the Beanpot Finals, to be the video replay official, the person that has the headsets on, on live with Nesson. My friends, the state police were ringing my phone, texting me. I had to shut my phone off. My phone was blowing up so much. But Paul was there for me and saw something in me. Selected before that. So recognition from the Rotary Club, your speech to us.
Wow.
One of the things the Rotary does is that we have a campaign to eradicate polio. So on your behalf, to eradicate, vaccinate 40 young children from polio across the world, and present this to you. Thank you so much for your speech.
Thank you. And it's an interesting thing. I just had a message. 5 of my young referees have been signed by the American Hockey League on their way to the National League. And with Cleve going to the Beanpot, I'm good at recognizing talent.
Not really.
When I see somebody that's talented and has the ability, can't get better till you get better games, right?
That's right.
It's all right. Some days it's better than others.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed my time here.
Same thing.
So again,
Same thing, yeah. Yeah, no.
Remind everybody.
It's good to see you. You too, thank you very much.
Yes, please. 50-50 raffle. 50-50 raffle.
This is the purple with the pink.
This is not blue.
if you like a book, they're $20, or you can go online for the children's book. It's Magical Christmas for Paul Stewart. That money goes to, the profit for that goes to inner city youth hockey to buy skates for kids that couldn't have them, couldn't afford them.
What's the website called?
The number,
It's right on
806.
Amazon, just
What's the number?
Google Paul Stewart.
806.
That's not very good number.
Anybody?